Hello, everybody. Today we're going to take a look at the updated 2026 U.S. Senate prediction for the month of June. We last did this about 3 months ago, and not a whole lot has changed since then. We're way before the primaries. We're not really sure who's even going to run in a bunch of these races. But the conventional wisdom is the national environment should at least slightly favor the Dems. Republicans right now have a 53-seat majority. Dems, with the independents, would need to pick up 4 seats to have an outright majority. So most likely, that's going to be a multi-cycle process. But hey, also Republicans are going to be looking to go on offense as well. But we'll take a quick stroll through all the states and see where things are at. We'll start with the safe states. These are expected to be 10 or more point margins or otherwise not competitive. We'll start with the Dems. First, we've got Oregon. Then it's Colorado, Illinois, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, New Jersey, Delaware, and Virginia I took from likely up to safe. Of course, that state is going to be borderline. But unless Glenn Youngkin decides to run, or it becomes an open seat, it would seem like Mark Warner or any other Democrat would be reasonably favored. The other states, there's really not much to say. Sometimes Republicans might point to New Jersey after the 2024 presidential election and think that Senate seat might end up being competitive. I think that's a lot of wishful thinking. I think Cory Booker or any other Democrat would be pretty heavily favored at this point. Illinois is going to be an open seat, but I don't see that getting under 10 at this point. Now let's go on to the safe states for the Republicans. First, we've got Alaska. Now this has some potential to change. If Mary Peltola decides to run for the Dems, or if Dan Sullivan decides not to run, then this is going to come down from safe. But for right now, we're going to leave it at this rating. Then we've got Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, South Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Kentucky, Tennessee, Mississippi, the open seat in Alabama, Florida, South Carolina, and West Virginia. Now, we'll talk about a few of these. Now, in some of these states, the incumbents are not for sure running again. But for right now, I still think they're red enough that the Senate would stay over 10. Florida is going to be a special election. But we've all seen how red the state has gotten over the past 5 to 10 years. And I could see putting it at likely out of caution. But it seems like Ashley Moody should be pretty comfortable against the weak Democratic bench. Now, in Nebraska, maybe Dan Osborne jumps in as an independent again against Pete Ricketts. If that happens, we'll see what happens, but Ricketts should be stronger than Deb Fischer back in November. In Louisiana, maybe Bill Cassidy gets another Republican challenger, and maybe John Bel Edwards runs for the Dems. But this is the Senate, this is not governor. So many times in the past, we've seen former governors try to run in the Senate, and it just does not pan out. There was Evan Bayh in Indiana, Tommy Thompson in Wisconsin, Larry Hogan in Maryland. It doesn't mean it's impossible, but I also think that's a bit of wishful thinking. The rest of these states, there's not a whole lot to say at this point. We'll see if something develops in Montana, Kansas, or South Carolina, either in the primary or for the general election, if the Dems can run a strong opponent and mount a great campaign. If that happens, 1 or 2 of these could get under 10. Now let's go to the little bit more competitive states. These are going to be the likely ratings, and these are between 5 and 10 points, or have an outside chance of being competitive. Let's start with the Dems. First, in New Mexico. Not a lot to say here. There's a weak GOP bench against Ben Ray Lujan. It could even hit 10 points. This likely rating might even be a little bit too generous. Then we've got Minnesota. This is an open seat. It should be semi-competitive, and the Dems do have to get through a primary, but there's a weak Republican bench here and a likely blue-leaning environment. So I'm looking at mid-single digits, but we're going to see what happens. And one more, we've got New Hampshire. Here's another open seat. Theoretically, it should be more competitive, and it might be, but Republicans did not get their rock star candidate, Chris Sununu. So the backup might be Scott Brown, but we're not sure yet. The most likely outcome is Chris Pappas is the next senator from the Granite State, but it could be more competitive than we think. But for right now, I'm going to also put this at a mid-single digit likely rating. Now I've got the Republican side, and we've also got another 3 ratings. First is Texas. This state I took from safe down to likely. That's mostly because there are some question marks around who the Republican nominee is even going to be. Will Ken Paxton, the potentially weaker candidate in the general, take down John Cornyn in the primary? Is it going to be Wesley Hunt? And which Democrat is it even going to be? Are they going to recycle another failed candidate? And which way is the state actually going to move? Considering Ted Cruz's margin in 24, that makes it seem like pretty much any Republican, including Paxton, would at least be able to pull off a win. So it's early, but I'm going to put that at high single digits and likely. Then we've got Iowa. Now this is the Joni Ernst seat. And of course, there's a chance it's not even her as the nominee. And we all know the backstory by now. This state has moved pretty hard toward the right over the past decade plus. Now, some people have said Ernst's recent comments about Medicaid are going to be enough for her to lose. To me, that's also similar when I hear New Jersey might go red. ahead. It's just going to be too far-fetched at this point. Once in a while, a flub or a controversy sticks way, way before an election, but we're not 2 or 3 weeks out. We're more than a year away. Politics is extremely fleeting, and polling in previous elections for Ernst has not shown her walking away with it. And she's not guaranteed to win, but she is pretty likely when you're making a prediction more than a year out. So it's not safe, but it is going to be over 5 and likely. Then we've got Ohio, the special election. Here we're looking at appointed Senator John Husted for the Republicans. He hasn't been in there that long, but he kind of just seems like a standard politician to me. And even if the Dems got whoever their absolute strongest candidate would be, maybe it's Sherrod Brown, maybe it's Tim Ryan, or maybe it's somebody else, it would still seem like any Republican would have an edge here. Trump won it by double digits, and I don't expect Husted to do what Trump did, but the most reasonable rating here does seem like it's going to be likely. Now we're going to go down to the most competitive states. Lean are under 5 points, Tilt are 1% or less. We'll go through them one at a time. First, we've got Michigan. This is an open seat. A lot of question marks on both sides about the primaries. The early prediction is it's going to be Jocelyn Benson against Mike Rogers. Now, Rogers just ran at 24, and it was extremely close. That was also for an open seat, but that was also during presidential turnout. I had this at tilt for the Dems last time, but for now, I'm going to bump it up by about 1% in their direction. A lot could change, but for now, I'm going to say it's about 2%, and it's going to go leans for the Dems. Now, we're going to go up to the northeast corner. We've got Maine. This is the Susan Collins seat. In the past, it seemed like she was definitely running for another term, but now it might not be totally clear. This is going to assume it is Collins, and the Dems could make this competitive. You might remember the polling back in 2020 was terrible. It showed Collins highly vulnerable, if not losing, but she won comfortably. Until we see what happens, the rating here is going to stay and leans for the Republicans. Now we're going to go to North Carolina. This is the Thom Tillis seat. More question marks here about what's going to happen in that primary. And on the other side, there's also questions. Is it going to be Wiley Nickel? Is Roy Cooper going to get into the race? This could be a wild race, so it's difficult to put a rating on it. Now, in the past, Tillis has not been strong in the polling, so I would not really expect him to be leading much of it this time either. If the Dems are going to pick up any seats, I think this is the most likely at this point. But in federal elections, Republicans usually have come out on top. So it's going to be close, but I'm going to keep my rating the same and give the benefit of the doubt to the incumbent party, and it's going to go tilt for the Republicans. But it's going to be competitive. Now, the last state is Georgia. This is also going to be extremely competitive. Republicans were dealt a big blow when Governor Brian Kemp decided not to run here. So again, because it's so early, we're not really sure who it's going to be that's going to challenge Jon Ossoff. But because right now he's going to be sitting back and waiting for his opponent, he's going to start off with the advantage. So the rating here is not really going to change. It's going to stay as a tilt for the Dems. And that's it. That's the current map. So a couple of ratings since last time have gotten a little bit bluer, but no new flips. The best path here for the Dems is to flip North Carolina and then go for Maine. After that, there's a big gap, and then they would have to hope the stars align in a place like Iowa, Ohio, or maybe even Alaska. There's always some other fringe scenarios you could come up with, but I think all that is just way too unreasonable at this point. Now, for the Republicans, if they're looking to try to expand their majority here, their best bet is going to hope something could happen in Georgia. They're going to need a great candidate that runs a solid race, and they're going to have to hope Ossoff makes some mistakes. After that, they're going to be looking at Michigan. They're going to need everything to go right for them here, plus they're going to hope the national environment might be neutral or somehow even red-leaning, and then they might be looking at a flip here. After that, the reach targets are going to be New Hampshire, Minnesota, or New Mexico. Those are pretty much off the table right now, but we'll see what happens. A lot of time left for people to get in and out of these races and shake things up. I know each side has their dream scenario that they think might be plausible, but deep down, I think that's more of what they just want to see happen as opposed to what's most realistic. So we're going to keep following it, but for right now, that's the map. So let me know in the comments. How's your 2026 Senate map looking for the month of June? Which storylines are you following the most, and what do you expect to see change over the next few months? Let me know what you think down below on your way out. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Join if you'd like to support the channel. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.